WNST spins into January here, and football becomes rear view, at least here in Baltimore. All focus on college basketball now as we get the Big Ten play underway, and the Terps with a little bit of a choppy effort against Michigan State last week, and Michigan State had their own problems against Ohio State on Sunday, and Maryland sees them on Thursday night. Here to talk all things Big Ten. He knows the conference pretty well. He's one of the Big Ten Network analysts, and our pal, he is BTN Jon Crispin out on Twitter, and we welcome him in where he will be sludging through Northwestern and Penn State, amongst other places. Man, we're right into high tide right now, aren't we, my friend?
Yeah, look, we had those first couple conference games in early December. It was almost like the warm-up, and now you kind of start to see how everything matters. I think those 2 December games were important, but now these games really seem to matter because it doesn't take much in this conference. You lose a couple games now, it's really hard to come back and keep the momentum high. At least if you lost early in December, you had some non-conference cupcakes to kind of get yourself going again. This is where it gets serious, and this is where it gets tough.
Well, certainly for Maryland, losing to the Bonnies and the Syracuse and sort of that soft underbelly and going for a month without really being tested, the Fairleigh Dickinsons and those types, got off right against Penn State, but so much has changed from the first Big Ten matchups when you take Jackson away, you take Bender away. I don't know that anybody's been more decimated, certainly for the kind of minutes that Jackson was going to be giving them the rest of the way. They are a completely different operation right now, and I'm not shocked that they got annihilated by Michigan State last week. I'm perhaps more shocked that Michigan State got annihilated by Ohio State on Sunday.
Yes, that was a shock, to everybody in the country, because I think for the first time all year we felt as if we had a clear-cut number one in the nation. I think when you saw Villanova up there, you look at Villanova and you see vulnerability with no size. And then you see Michigan State and go, wow, they're the most complete team in college basketball. And quite frankly, they're one of the most complete teams we've seen in quite a few years of college basketball. I think they've got everything to be a legitimate national championship contender. But Ohio State Sunday night just did exactly what they needed to do, which was focus on them, not worry about Michigan State. They covered action. They didn't try to stop Michigan State. They just covered each individual action really well. They did everything simply, to the letter of the law. When it comes to a foundational principle that is how to defend basketball, you got to credit Chris Holtmann for what he's done. This guy's just done an incredible job turning that program around and starting with the perception first, which was, hey, we're not going to take a year to rebuild. We're just going to teach basketball, and hopefully that wins out. So far, so good.
Well, Maryland's going to get a little piece of that action on Thursday night. Maybe a good time to be seeing them, maybe not. Some thoughts about where the Terps are right now. And hanging with Michigan for 15 minutes last week I thought was pretty nice. But I think for Turgeon, more minutes for Morcell. Who's coming off the bench? They're only 8 deep as it is right now. They're really not in a position to ever be in foul trouble or to be in a position where they need to win guys or somebody pulls a hamstring or somebody pulls up sick. They just have no depth right now.
No, they don't have any depth, and quite frankly, they're not alone in that. There's a lot of Big Ten teams that just don't have depth. It doesn't mean it can't be developed. It just means that you have to redefine certain roles, and redefining those roles includes some of those guys on the bench. So it's no longer, okay, Nick, just come in and give us a couple shots. It's like, no, I need you to come in and be a playmaker. I need you to come in and be a rebounder. So you have to redefine roles of the guys that you want to play a more significant role. And then I look at the lineup that you have on the floor. It's a different lineup. And I think you need to look to get Bruno Fernando involved in the game early. When he's involved in the game early, he tends to foul less. And when I say involved, I mean run action offensively that gets him involved. Get lobs to the rim. Get ISO situations around the block. If he's involved in the game, he's somehow involved in the rhythm and the flow of the game, he is much better. So I think that's what it comes down to. You just have to redefine roles. You have to make sure guys understand that you need to be more balanced than ever before, because as great as Cowan and Herter are, they can't do it by themselves.
In the case of Cowan, he has really shown himself to be an elite point guard in this conference at this point. I don't know that we didn't see that last year. There wasn't a whole lot of oxygen, right? 2 years ago, they had all those great players, 1 ball, 7 players. Last year, the Trimble thing with the 3 youngsters never really sort of lit fire in the way that at this point, Cowan doesn't turn the ball over. What more do you want out of a point guard at this point?
Yeah, look, I think his biggest strength also is what he can do defensively on the ball. And if you start there, I think he's going to be in a good place. Now, the fact that he's able to step out, shoot threes from the depth that he's shooting threes, that's another key component to his game. And with Herter and Cowan around the perimeter, being able to create for themselves, to create space, and then make shots, I think that changes how you defend. And with that space comes opportunity for other guys. And that's immediately where I look down low to Fernando. It's where I look at Marcel being able to just make plays in a one-on-one situation from the perimeter in, because he's really that kind of slasher that you need to have. So I think the balance that they give you by spacing the floor so well, especially Cowan and Herter, but Cowan in particular with his ability to use the bounce, it's going to give them opportunities. It just may take time because, as I said, it's a different dynamic with this team now with the injuries.
No one's covering the Big Ten quite like the Big Ten Network. If you ever have it on, watching the Terps, maybe watching a little Ohio State and Michigan State and some analysis. Jon Crispin is our guest. He's at BTN. Jon Crispin out on Twitter, and you can follow along through his winter journey through the Midwest and other points. All of our programming brought to you by our friends at DNL Window Tinting. 26 years of tinting everything, cars, boats, businesses. Now we get these ice storms coming in here, and you get the snow coming in. Take the squint away. Put the shades on the sun. That's what they do at DNL Window Tinting, Parkville and White Marsh. Go see them. Also, our friends at Costas Inn. Good enough for the Today Show and Hoda, who's loves her Costas Inn. Good enough for my mom as well. Fat Crabs, cold beer. The legend continues. Stop by and get some pit beef on one of these cold days. They got a great pit there at Costas Inn. John, for you with the rest of this conference, I mean, have we maybe been unkind to Purdue, given that they lost such a special player last year, and thinking, well, how are they going to be rebounding this year? Clearly, Michigan State's now picked up a pretty kind of ugly loss here to kind of start the party. Now it's kind of Purdue's show for a little while, right?
Well, look, I got crushed when I said this earlier this year, but I think it's addition by subtraction. And yes, you're taking the Big Ten Player of the Year off the floor, but you're adding better balance. It's no longer this inside-out, slow it down kind of bruiser type of game, which you can't win in the NCAA tournament. That is proven. You just can't win that way in the NCAA tournament. You need to have great balance around the perimeter, and they've got that this year, where you've got four guys around the perimeter, and that includes some of the guys that come off the bench. You've got four guys around the perimeter that are able to space, make plays, make shots, and defend. Because of that, you now have one-on-one ISO situations for Isaac Haas in the post. And the Terps learned that the hard way in early December, that if you get stuck one-on-one in the post with Isaac Haas, he'll beat you. It's when you're able to double and force them to play inside out is when you can have some sort of success against Purdue. The problem is you can't do that anymore. They play outside in. And that's what's changed for them. They're no longer just going to throw it into the post to Biggie Swanigan and Isaac Haas and hope that those big guys can make a play. It's why I think they're better this year than they were last year, and certainly better suited for March. So now to see them in a point where they're a top 10 team, I saw 7th in the country with the new rankings that just came out. So you look at that and go, okay, they're finally getting the respect nationally, but where's the limit for this team? That's still to be determined.
You know, you mentioned where we are in the schedule and getting ready for March and getting better, and obviously, Turgeon's got his work cut out for him with two players missing from all of this stuff. But Purdue's one of those teams that they didn't play like that tough schedule either, right? I mean, they had a couple of games, Arizona, Louisville, right around Thanksgiving, but other than that, they kind of steered clear of that sort of a mess where Michigan State's going to take it on Duke, in October or whatever it was way back in the beginning. It's been a little different for them. How do you feel about that? Because Maryland certainly took an easier pathway this year. I mean, I think Turgeon would even say that. I don't know whether that serves them well or not at this point. There certainly were some games where they got extra minutes for guys who are going to be playing more moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, when you look at a young team, you hope that your scheduling suits the team that you're dealing with right now. And it's hard to do that when so many of these agreements are done years in advance. You don't know from year to year what your team's going to look like. If I'm a high major team, I don't play a ton of tough games. I just don't. I think what I do is I play a couple of cupcakes, and then I play a tough game. And then I play a couple of cupcakes, and then I play a tough game, up until you get to the point where you're ready for conference play. The reason why you do that is you don't want to compound issues. You don't want to get your team down by, say, Michigan State loses to Duke. Well, and then it's another challenge after that. And then it's North Carolina's coming into town. I mean, it doesn't stop. See, I think if you space out some of your challenges, you get a good sense of where you're at in terms of where your program's at and what you need to improve upon. Then you got a couple cupcake games to figure those things out. Can we do that? Can we execute in this department and this department? Can we defend? And then let's see where we're at again. In a week or so, we play another top 25 team. I think that's the way to do it, but it's just harder to do because sometimes you think that you're scheduling a top 25 team. And for instance, Purdue played Louisville, and Louisville at the time was 17th in the country. They're not looking like the 17th team in the country right now, so you don't even know who you're going to get night in, night out. It's just nothing is that set in stone. I mean, they also played Butler. They beat up on Butler. Butler beat the number one team in the country at that time. So it's hard to say. I like spacing it out so you can actually get some practice time in between and figure out what you need to improve upon.
Well, word comes now that we're going to be playing 20 in the Big Ten next year,
Yep.
right? So that's going to change everything, right?
Yeah, it's going to change everything. It's going to be a similar schedule that we have this year in terms of having a few games early in December when students are still around. And I think it brings a certain sense of urgency to that schedule in November, where instead of just trying to pack your team with some high-profile games and that's cupcake along the way, I think you have to look at that and go, well, shoot, November, forget these tournaments that pay us a ton of money. Let's get ready for conference play. And the way to do that may not be go get beat up by Duke. It may not mean let's get Arizona on the schedule somehow. I mean, even though that was in a tournament.
We're the flagship for Coppin State here, right? So Fang used to go take all these games. Now Juan Dixon's running around, and they're just getting their heads beaten in every night taking money games. There are places and times for that, but if you're a Big Ten school, why go to Duke and lose a game in November? I don't. I from a scheduling standpoint, I don't know how that helps you.
It only helps you if you prepare a certain way. The way I would prepare as a coach, it would be less about the opponent and more about us. How are we getting better at what we need to get better at? So to me, I don't need to play Duke to figure that out. I think a lot of coaches want to get a good gauge, and they want their players to know where they stand against top-level talent. So then that way they can get them to buy into, this is how we need to do this in practice. This is a sense of urgency that we need to bring every day in practice and every game that we go out there. I wouldn't worry about that as much as focusing on what we need to do better, what we do well and maximizing the potential of that, and then increasing some of the things, trying to improve upon some of the things that we don't do well. So I'm more along the lines of, say what you want about my week schedule, so long as I'm playing my best basketball in February and March, you're not going to care anymore.
Jon Crispin joining us here from the Big Ten Network. You can follow his journey on Twitter at BTN. That's Big Ten Network, Jon Crispin as well. And, of course, Maryland taking on Ohio State, who's all the rage after beating Michigan State on Sunday. Purdue and Michigan State both on their schedule later. Maryland's got a date with Michigan next week, as well as Minnesota. That wake-up call up at the barn 2 years ago when the Golden Gophers knocked off Maryland when they hadn't won. But I tend to think Michigan may be a cut above. This is a really treacherous couple of 5-6 game period of time for the Terps coming up here.
Yeah, Michigan is a cut above, and to me, they're probably the fourth best team in the conference right now, and they're only improving. And I think the way they're doing it is they're bringing some young guys up to speed. Isaiah Livers at Michigan is turning into what they thought he would be, Mr. Basketball in the state. And you keep a guy around like that, he is just showing that he can be a real weapon. And as you develop that youth, you develop some sort of depth. And now all of a sudden you have a bench that's strong, and their point guard situation's getting better and better with Xavier Simpson improving. Now, are they going to be as good as they were last year? Hard to say. I have a tough time seeing them win the Big Ten conference tournament championship the way they did last year. But it doesn't mean that they're not going to end up as a potential top 25 team. I really do. I think Michigan's playing at that level. And for Maryland, I actually think that Mark Turgeon coaches less talent better than he coaches more talent. And that's not a knock. That's a compliment. I think some coaches manage talent, but they don't really coach it. I think Mark Turgeon coaches basketball. He understands the game. He teaches the game. And with less talent, he's able to get his message across. And I actually think that with the injury, he's going to step things up a bit. I think players are going to buy into the system even more, and he's going to be able to create situations that lead to better balance, even better depth that we don't expect to be there. So I have faith in Maryland. I really do. I think Maryland's probably the fifth best team in the conference right now, and probably are in that 5-4 area, fighting for that spot so long as they start to figure out, life without guys like Jackson and Bender.
Well, I've lowered my expectations a little bit, John. I don't expect them to go to the Sweet 16. I don't expect them to coast into the tournament. I think making the tournament right now would be,
yes.
I don't want to say Herculean, but I think that would be a noble effort unto itself because I think, and certainly a shame for the kid with Jackson who came back. There were some NBA thoughts. Clearly had some parts of his game he had to work on, and getting into this season, this was going to be a chance for him to really shine that's now been taken away.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do think, regardless of coming back, he needed to come back. He wasn't ready yet, and if health is an issue, that hurts you even more. So get healthy, get strong, continue to improve upon your game, and I don't think this is a step back for his career. I just think it's frustrating to go through this. I think anybody that's played the game at some point has had to sit out. I mean, I know I sure did, whether it was a redshirt year or 4 foot surgeries going into my senior year. So I understand the feeling, but you have to look at it as a way to get better. And NBA guys look at guys sitting out not as, damaged good. You go, how's the guy's going to learn the game by watching it? And that is tried and true. It is proven that if you take time, especially after playing, and if you sit out and really observe, you learn the game that much better. The game gets even easier after watching as much as it does after playing. So I think Justin Jackson is going to be that much better because of this situation, so long as he does what's necessary to get healthy.
John, always a pleasure to check in with you, man. We're really getting into the heart and soul of all this. You're going to be at Northwestern, Penn State this week. Any other thoughts about any other sleeper teams here that you like or don't like the way teams play? I know nobody can like the way I was playing. Fran McCaffrey didn't like that the other night either. And
no.
That looks like a real hot mess there. Sort of the first hot mess of the year, right?
It's definitely a hot mess there. They just don't have that swagger. They don't have the right attitude. They've got weapons, but they just don't have the mojo. And the team that has it is Nebraska. I really like Nebraska right now. I think they've got 5 guys when they play this. Isaiah Roby at the 5, and you got Copeland, Georgetown transfer. You got James Palmer Jr. You've got Anton Gill, and then Glenn Watson Jr. That's a 5-man lineup that can play from the perimeter on in. That's going to be tough, and I really like that Nebraska team to make a little bit of a run here. They played a tough schedule in December. I think they make a little bit of a run, and people start talking about them as a potential NCAA tournament team. Wouldn't surprise me.
My man, travel safely out there in the friendly heart of the Midwest. We'll get you here to College Park before it's all over with. Let me know when you're coming in this way. It's always good to have you on, man.
Will do. My pleasure.
Great insights from Jon Crispin. Played the game at a high level, now calls it for the Big Ten Network all across the way. You can catch him at the Northwestern game on Wednesday night and then Penn State on Friday. And, of course, follow along on Twitter at BTN Jon Crispin. That's JONCRISPIN. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox free of charge at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Never any commitment, and they'll get you where you need to be here in 2018 as we work our way through the cookies and all the eggnog and all the pumpkin pie that we've been eating the last 6 weeks, or at least I've been eating all that and some ice cream as well. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.